TRIMUI have made some great handhelds of the past, more specifically the Brick, which was one of my favourite portable handhelds of last year. And although it was great, the screen and form factor could only get you so far in terms of emulation and comfortability. And now that all changes thanks to the Pro version. And by Pro, I actually mean XL. I don't know why TRIMUI have called this the Brick Pro, because the specs are exactly the same. I think it's closer to an XL because it's just bigger and there's more things added to it in terms of the physical exterior nature. And even though it's just a larger version of the Brick, I actually really do like it, and I want to share with you my opinions, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's jump in. TRIMUI has added a larger 3.95 IPS non-touch display with a resolution of 1024 by 768, which is the same resolution as the Brick but offers that more comfortable gameplay, especially on consoles from PS1 and newer, which was one of the disadvantages of going for the original Brick. Screen real estate, pretty much. It also comes with two Hall effect joysticks with LED backlights and concaved grips. These do stick out a little bit and will be cumbersome to remove in and out of your pocket without popping off the removable sticks, but they're there for an important reason: to pair with the larger display in order to push the specs boundaries and emulate PlayStation 1, Dreamcast, Nintendo 64 and more comfortably, something many Brick fans wanted. With this added screen and size comes an increased battery capacity of 66%, evolving from 3000 mAh to 5000 mAh, perfect for those wanting to push it closer to 5 to 10 hours of gameplay, depending on what consoles you are emulating. And this is the first time we're getting this retro grey version on any TRIMUI Brick handheld, which is my personal favourite. The shell of this device has a very light textured feel to it, which stops scratches and scuffs from showing obviously, alongside the classic metal backplate on the back to add a premium touch. The buttons used, like on many of TRIMUI's products, are very high quality and have a very quiet, clicky feedback to them. For example, the D-pad, although it sits firmly on the contacts with little travel to it, does have a good amount of directional flexibility and is a pleasure to use. The action buttons are on the small side, but again incredibly well made, has light travel to them and are easy to press. The newly welcomed Hall effect joysticks are nice, they're very light, highly sensitive, have good grip to them and bright LEDs behind them to give them that modern look. However, I do want to mention that they do touch the actual casing of the Brick Pro in every direction. So it's not the stick stopping itself, it's actually the grip hitting the shell, which means you'll eventually start seeing markings on the shell from your analog stick. I tested this by replacing the white Brick Pro's grey sticks with black ones to show you all that wear and tear is already happening on a device that I have had for just a week. This isn't cool, and it will require customers to constantly clean their device, or for people that don't, you'll just have black markings all around your casing for weeks, if not months, if you don't clean it, which I don't want to do personally, and I think TRIMUI should have seen this from the get-go. The additional buttons on the face vary. You have the Start and Select at the bottom next to the TRIMUI button that opens up emulation settings for you to quickly save, load, and exit back to the main menu. This button alone somehow makes the iconic LED buttons on the top of the face redundant, as they literally aren't used for anything, only additional mapping if you want to map them to certain things in certain consoles. Fast forward is probably the likely thing I would advise mapping these to, but actually I never used them, which is a little bit sad because I do like the fact that they light up and it adds to the TRIMUI look. I want to mention that I noticed on my retro version of the Brick Pro that the internal vibration motor was completely broken. This can be tested in the hardware settings by pressing both shoulder buttons, and the feedback was so small that I couldn't actually notice anything. It almost sounded like something was hissing. In my grey version, it doesn't work, but in my black and white version, it works very, very well. So 1 in 3 of my devices has a broken vibration motor. So I don't know if this is going to be a mass-produced issue or I just got really unlucky, but it's worth noting one of my vibration motors does not work. On the back, you'll find some of my favorite shoulder buttons on any vertical device. These are somehow incredibly bouncy, satisfying to press, and come with not one but 2 additional replacements in different sizes. You can customize the layout to your styling, and for me, I chose the tallest ones, offering more distinction between R1 and R2. These are simply installed by pulling off the originals and pushing in the new ones. It's very easy to do, and they attach firmly. Between them, you'll find an additional USB slot used for accessories and video output. This slot will not charge your device, however. Charging happens at the bottom, alongside your micro SD card slot, a reset button, and a headphone jack. On the sides, a power button that also has an LED light behind it, which will show if your battery is low, charging, or full. Above that is a mappable function key, your iconic LED strip bar across the top, and finally volume buttons and a home button on the other side. You'll also notice small engravings around the device to make it look more futuristic, likely taking inspiration from the Game Boy DMG and to add some extra grip. All of that means what exactly? Well, for me, it's genuinely a very comfortable device to use daily, which is something that lacked in the smaller brick because of its size. Those buttons and comfortability is paired with a very bright, colourful 324 ppi 4x3 display that looks absolutely stunning in person. I had to double check that TRIMUI had the right specifications for this screen because it was that crispy. I generally love this panel, and I think that TRIMUI and other handheld manufacturers need to use this more because it's bright, it's crispy, it's crispy, and the 4x3 aspect ratio just makes all kinds of emulation really nice on here. I'm beyond impressed with this display, and I think it's one of the best sub $100 displays I have seen in this category. The only issue with the display is that it sits slightly off-center around the bezels, and when you see it, it's then hard to ignore it. I know other devices have this too, but with TRIMUI's such precise design ethics, this really did annoy me slightly. It's just that thing where you see it, and then for the rest of your time playing, those games just look slightly too raised because of the lower bezel, or the larger bezel at the bottom. This comes with TRIMUI's custom Linux front end straight out of the box, and although many customers do end up changing it due to its simplicity, I do have to say it makes for a great out-of-the-box user experience when you compare it to some of its competitors in the space, such as Anbernic, whose custom front end is terrible. And as I've mentioned in previous reviews, I review these devices with what they ship with, and do not review custom third-party front ends that pair with it as part of the review. That said, it's clear that TRIMUI has put some time into this. You can easily navigate your ROM library by syncing your SD card. It comes with a handful of themes to change your color layouts. System settings is easy to explore and alter, and you can also change an array of LED settings in here too. It's good. It's not great, but it gets the job done, and as I always like to say, if I gave this to someone who isn't into handhelds, like my father or friends that just don't know this scene, could they use it and understand it easily? Yes, and for me, that's a couple of bonus points. Now let's cut to the chase. This can emulate up to and including a handful of Dreamcast games. Not GameCube, not PlayStation 2, not Nintendo Wii, and not PSP. TRIMUI are likely keeping all of that power locked to their Pro U in terms of performance, because that's what you're going to want from a $290 handheld with a 4-inch display, whole joysticks, and a metal case. So I think what TRIMUI are trying to do here is create a really good mid-range retro vertical handheld for a budget price, and that's what they've done. So I have to remember, this is a sub $100 device, and it's pretty cheap in today's market, and I think Dreamcast and below is quite respectable. The 4x3 display allows me to take full advantage of my retro gaming library without losing out on on-screen space, and I had no issues emulating most of my games on here at all. Yes, the device does get pretty warm, especially on the metal backplate, but it was a pleasant all-round experience on all types of emulation, with Dreamcast pushing it to its limits on intense games like Crazy Taxi 2 and Sonic Adventure 2. But flaws and frame rates, in all honesty, they were there, but I could play these games somewhat comfortably if you really wanted to push this to its limits. I know some people will say this does not do Dreamcast games, but for me, there was some Dreamcast games that this could emulate, which was a nice addition. Something you could just about do on the brick, but you didn't have an analog stick, so you couldn't really do that at all. The same goes for Nintendo 64. PSP fans will be disappointed, however. Emulation quality on this console isn't great on that console, so that's pretty much its limits there, which I'm comfortable with on a $99 device. What brings this down isn't necessarily the emulation quality, but for me, this is one of the first times I noticed that the speakers on a device are very, very poor. Rarely do I use it at like a high volume, in all honesty. It's usually when I'm gaming at night, inside or near my partner, so volume is low, which is fine. But once you start pumping that up, you will notice some very obvious distortion. And they cannot put that type of speaker in their $293 Pro U, or people are going to go berserk. So I think here, if TRIMUI are watching this, I hope you've put better speakers in your Pro U version. Overall, I adore this device, primarily because of the well-built button quality, paired with a remarkable new display that puts a big smile on my face. Yes, emulation could be a bit better, but we have to remember this is a budget-friendly, sub-$100 device that has one of the best displays in this category. The OLED LEDs, removable shoulder buttons, remarkable battery life and simple front end make this a very fun, reliable and affordable device that will make most retro gamers incredibly happy. This is now my new favorite sub $100 vertical retro handheld on the market, which surprised me because I didn't think I actually needed this. You know, I have many other vertical handhelds in my collection. I adore the brick, but actually this hits a sweet spot for me in terms of build quality and affordability and a stunning display that others on the market just don't do right now. The only struggle I can see on TRIMUI's end of selling this is something that I just mentioned, is that a lot of their audience are already going to have vertical handhelds in the space, and fishing out another $100 for something that just feels a little bit better and looks a little bit better is going to be hard for them, and that's just going to come down to marketing it better. And also, if you haven't seen in our on our website in the news category, Mangmi are actually working on an Air Y vertical handheld, and they've previously created the Air X, which was a horizontal handheld for $99 that could emulate a handful of PS2 games. So maybe they're going to compete in this category with TRIMUI and launch a vertical $99 handheld that can do a little bit more. So as much as I love this, and I know many of you will also love it, I think you should hold off for a few weeks and see what Mangmi are doing in the space before making a buying decision. I know that's probably not what you want to hear after my high praise, but I want to save you a little bit of money here because it could turn out that Mangmi makes something better for the same price. So wait a few weeks. We do have that coming in for review over the next few weeks, so subscribe if you want to see a review of the Mangmi Air Y. I'll put these head to head in terms of a comparison, and then you can make a buying decision. It's nice to see there's more vertical handhelds in the space that are pushing boundaries. Nothing are doing anything unique at the moment, but I'm hoping Mangmi have something up their sleeve. Their Air X was one of the first $99 handhelds to emulate in terms of good PS2 performance. Their Pocket Max had removable action buttons that you could change in terms of feel. So I'm hoping they do something there with the Air Y that's a little bit innovative and unique in the space. So there you have it, a look at the TRIMUI Brick Pro, a very, very great vertical handheld for $99 that I know many of you will love. You just have to wait it out for a few more weeks to see what the competition does. As per usual, thanks for watching and subscribe for more retro handheld content. See you in the next one. Bye bye.